welcome to another episode of the San Francisco Revival Podcast. I'm Gisela Angulo-Avellaneda, Mission Housing's Communications Manager, and your co-host for this episode. And I'm really, really excited to be joining by our amazing Deputy Executive Director, Marcia Contreras.
Thank you, Gisela. Well, I'm more excited because today I am being joined by Lydia Ramirez, the Chief Operating Officer for Five Star Bank. And it's great to have Lydia because not only is Lydia someone that I have been admiring and we've been following her for a bit, but also Five Star Bank, which is the institution you represent, is an amazing partner of Mission Housing. So I'm excited to dive in and start having a conversation about how our two worlds, not a nonprofit, right, and a lending institution, come together
100%.
and partner. We'll talk a little bit about that, but I think what I'm most important about is learning a little bit more about you and your trajectory and really sending a message out to Latina ladies out there that may be listening to this podcast. With that being said, why don't you formally introduce yourself, Lydia?
Well, thank you both for having me. This has been a true honor to be asked and to be here with you this morning. As you said, my name is Lydia Ramirez, and I am the Executive Vice President and Chief Operating Officer for Five Star Bank. I have been with the bank, it'll come up on 9 years in September.
Wow.
In this role for the last 3.5, 4, with a couple of change in title, but in the C-suite nonetheless in that capacity. And with some ever-growing responsibilities, came to the bank in 2017. Before that, I was with Union Bank for 17 years. And so, in fact, started much of my banking career right here on California in San Francisco. So for me, coming and being a part of the Bay and the expansion of what we're doing here in terms of our networking and our efforts is just feel like I'm coming home.
You're coming home. You're local.
I'm local. And so, when I see 350 California, 400 California, that's me 25 years ago and walking into those steps going, these buildings are massive. Where am I going to make my footprint? Well, with guidance and time, everybody makes their footprint. And so I'm so excited to come back here this time and kind of be talking about my trajectory and my footprint and what's kind of keeps me coming back and really helping to drive nonprofit partnership.
Yeah,
Awesome.
That's great.
Yes.
Well, Lydia is the highest ranking Latina in banking right now. What an accomplishment.
Correct.
How do you ended up in banking and why inspire you to pursue leadership in banking?
That's a great question. I think many of us have immigrant parents that have these aspirational dreams for our children, right? And so mine were no different. My father came from Zacatecas and came here and knew that the promise of something greater, something bigger, something more stable. And so they usually tend to think of like you're going to be a doctor or a lawyer, right? Those are the two professions that they're like, yeah, I really want to have a child that's in one of these because they see success, right? And stability, and they see that they don't have to worry about what's going to come next for their kids because they are basically what they consider two very prominent professions, right? So I actually was going to be a doctor. I love science through and through. To this day, I love science through and through. But about a little more than halfway through my UC Davis career, I ended up fainting every time I tried to pull blood or stick a needle in somebody. So I was like, well, that ends my career as being a doctor. And I was lost. But, I was working while I was in college because I came from blue collar parents, right? So, even though I had a full ride, because I was fortunate enough to understand that education is the biggest equalizer. And so I head down during high school and made sure that my parents didn't have to pay for what college looked like. And so they didn't. But that doesn't mean that I'm not without rent or food or the fun money or any of that stuff. So I have to work, right? So, many people who have start their kind of career in college usually have some kind of banking story. Like they've been a teller at some point and it's kind of an easy job. And usually those hours are a little bit more flexible. Like, hey, you can come in for 3 hours and it's our peak period, right? So that ended up being my story. I was hired at Union Bank in 2000. Went in and they had like a line out the door and I'm like, it looks like you guys need some help. And they're like, yep. And I was hired the very next day and I started that following Monday. Long gone are those days. The HR process is much much more long than it was
it was.
back then. And I'm sounding like it's like 1909 back then, but like literally just a lot has changed, right? In terms of kind of what we do and what we look at. But it was a fantastic ride. And so through that, I ended up having the idea to move into a psychology background and a Spanish. So I double majored. So I got a BS in psychology because I had done everything in science up until that point. And psychology, understanding the relationships and building on relationships, understand how we are naturally wired in our brain was very intriguing to me. So I ended up doing that. And then obviously getting like my English degree, but in Spanish was very important to me. So I double majored and left. And so I didn't even have the trajectory of a normal banking career where you do finance or economics or managerial economics or business admin with some emphasis. I didn't have any of that. So when you say I'm the non-traditional banker in a high-ranking position, I am the non-traditional banker because I had great mentors basically that kind of helped me. And so I was graduating in my 5th year. I had to become a super senior because I wanted to finish that double major. And she basically said, you have fantastic acumen with people. She's like, what if you thought about this management training program? You had to graduate and there were 6 spots offered statewide. I was fortunate to get one of those spots. And that was kind of the impetus of Lydia the Banker.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is, listen, when I hear that story, I know it's easier said than done.
Oh, yeah.
But I through the podcast here, I want to dive in a little bit more about some of those topics that you just brought in, because you mentioned a little bit about opportunity, right? Sometimes there is a need, right, for someone to find that opportunity for us to escalate or to move up or to ascend, right?
100%.
So we have a few options here that I want to kind of dive in. But for now, you talked about entering into the banking industry, the opportunity you have. But I would assume, and maybe I'm wrong, and you can correct me, as we all know, when we enter a new industry, we have a lot of challenges as we're ascending or if we're moving or changing. Can you talk a little bit about the challenges you faced, right? And how you stayed grounded in your values as you were moving up that ladder?
100%. So some of the challenges I faced were, so banking is large, right? There's so many avenues you can think about. And when you think about just like each industry in its own totality and each potential vertical, they all have different variations of what somebody can do when they grow up. And so I think for me, it was a little overwhelming to decide what I wanted to do, how did I want to go about doing it. Some of my challenges was I was a big talker. So I would sometimes spend too much time with people because I wanted to know their whole story, but it really helped me. And that's what I figured out is, first of all, I'm a very social person. So I need to be able to understand your story so I could better help to understand how to help you, right? And so sometimes I get like, okay, you've been with the customer for 2 hours. I'm like, I know, but now I know their whole story and I can help and I can do all these things and right? Like, and I ended up being more successful. And so what they figured out from me through what they perceived as a challenge was actually a way to become a even stronger banker going forward.
That was your asset.
It was 100% an asset.
Yes.
Right? Relationship building is the core of so many things that we do, not just in our career, but in life, right? So I think the gift of having a conversation is sometimes being lost in today's world. And so I constantly remind, as a mother of 2 growing young adults, yes, I can text you, but I want to hear you. I want to talk to you. I want to see the body language when you're like, Mom, but, what do you want today?
That's
why?
right.
Did we go through all the understandings of why you're picking up the phone and asking me this question, right? So I think some of those things I embraced earlier on and have been fruitful in my career and personal life and beyond.
That's awesome. And I think that's also part of our culture, right?
100%.
We're very social. We like to speak. I remember I was with my daughter having a meal, and the young lady that was, providing our chips and salsa. I know this is a little bit off topic, but I think it's important to highlight how just one brief conversation can connect you with someone. Right? Yeah. And I think you saw that. That was valuable in your career path.
Yes.
And you took it on, right?
Yes.
And you never changed. I think that is important.
Never change. And sometimes, I go to conferences, I go to dinners, and it's important that I acknowledge all of the individuals that successfully got me to my chair, whether it's the the waiter
Yeah.
or the waitress, whether it's the bartender, whether it's the hostess.
That's right.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate you. What brought you here?
Yeah.
I'm curious. Like, I'll look across the room and I'm like, why are we all sitting here at this moment in this time? Like, what brought you here? Like, I'm like, and I just try to like figure out like what's happening in the room all the time. I'm very curious in that way. But, to your point, you never know how you can potentially help somebody or help something or someone. And sometimes, because I'm a little bit more social and I'm a little bit more confident today than I was 25 years ago, when I see somebody who has been overly gracious in terms of just the simpleness of being a hostess or a waitress or a waiter, it stays with me. And so,
Yes.
because the natural individual that you are doesn't change from job to job. And so when I find those just natural human assets, I'm like, well, how can I help you? You're just a delight. And I want to make sure that if there's something that I can do, especially if they look like us, right? If they're,
Yes.
and I mean, let's be real. Most of the time it is, right? And so,
Yes.
I try to figure out what that looks like. So
There's a lot of similarities in your experiences and your line of work as ours. Because in your case, you're connecting with folks, right? In your beginning, your initiation of your career, you were trying to build that rapport and that relationship.
Yep.
And a lot of time the best building of relationship comes when people trust us, right?
100%.
Or they like you, or they find something similar to us. And I mentioned that because we on the Mission Housing side, we provide customer service. It's a different customer service, but people connect with you the minute they know that you speak maybe their language, or then maybe they know that you are you smile at them and you greet them appropriately, right? There's a huge shift.
So you remember their name.
Oh,
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, and so we introduced cultural banking because it is absolutely a thing, whether it's being a part of the Sikh community that is in our Yuba City area through and through, looking at Sacramento and beyond. And we live in such a diverse state. So for us to not recognize how each culture embraces money is makes no sense, right? There's not a one size fits all.
That's right.
And so sometimes we have to get past some of the taboos that have been established through cultural generations. And so while even individuals that have been raised here, like myself, I'm born and raised in the United States, I still maintain some of those cultural norms because they've been imparted on me, right? But at the same time, I'm trying to break some of those habits as I impart that same type of knowledge to my children and the generations beyond, right? So, in fact, I was having coffee. I call it, we call it T and J or T and G. This friend of mine, we do tea and gym all the time together. So we're big tea drinkers, and we'll go. And so we go and just kind of talk about life, and it's great. And so we're talking about sometimes the taboo of money and having that conversation, especially when we start to embrace some of these bigger jobs where there is more money, and you're like, I don't even know what to do. Like taxes, what's all that about, right? And just being really real about like so much wisdom that's been imparted with our Anglo friends, but have not been imparted as much in our communities, right? So how do we stand up and say, let me show you how to help keep some of those dollars or use them in a way that's going to be more fruitful, right? So there's so many things that are in my head, like, oh, I need to do this, and now I need to do this, and now I need to do this, right? So for me, it's like, yes, I'm a banker, but I'm a banker, I'm a community member, I'm a, figure out what comes next for our community as a whole, because I just want all of us to be able to be successful, right? And so if I can do a little bit of it, I will do it.
Open the door, right?
Yes.
Just like they open the door to us.
100%.
Yes. I want to do a follow-up question about, we talked a little bit about how you moved up in your career path, but what would you say to a young woman or a young Latina or a young lady looking for themselves and trying to figure out how do they navigate maybe challenges in their own career path? What guidance can you give them?
Man, I had a lot of challenges. To say that my career is perfect or was perfect in its trajectory is like so far from the truth. I'll never forget, and I'm driven through, si me dices no, I'm going to do it even more, right? Like I'm just till I can tell you I can, right? Like, but it's in some of those moments where you're the right candidate for the role, but there's just something, whether it's there's just something that's not connecting, right?
Mhm.
With that person that you are trying to impart why you'd be the right person for the role. And I was younger in my career, and I was a branch manager, and I was trying to apply for uh, a role that was closer to home. I was at that time commuting to Stockton, and I was in Sacramento, and young mom, like super young mom, and trying to, cut off 40 minutes of my day to day back and forth. And he looked at me, and I'll never forget the words, "Kiddo, you're going to go far one day." And I
Oh.
was like, "You're right. I am." And so I knew I didn't get the job, but the person that ended up getting the role, they were successful, but not as successful as I know I could have been in that role. And sometimes you have to allow the next generation to come in and bring in their innovation, creativity, curiosity, because sometimes when something new is here, yes, experience does speak volumes, but it doesn't always trump what is out there. And so I feel like when that door closed on me, it was a learning lesson for me, right? I was I was humble, but maybe too humble. I was hungry, but maybe I didn't show enough hunger. And so these were some of the things that I was really thinking about when I, quote unquote, didn't get that role, and ended up being even more successful than I would have been had I taken that role. So, I think some things happen for a reason. So that was one big one. And then I think the other thing to me is all of my mentors have been white men until about 3 years ago. I had a couple of, in my career that have been in the industry have been white men, right? And when I came into Five Star Bank, there was a woman who was going to be my boss, and just spitfire. And I was just like, yes, finally, she was a white woman, but a woman nonetheless, right? Like, and I had some good women in my career along the way, but not somebody that like was going to take me and help to mold me, right? Like, and
Yes.
so, and I think in that instance, that was one of my challenges, is to be able to truly connect in a mentorship capacity when you're not completely understanding what it means to be a single mother, one, while I'm trying to raise two young boys, and the idea of not being successful is not an option. So, trying to figure out what does that come like. So finding the right mentors, and mentors change over time. I learned that one quick too, right? Like, just because you're their mentor today doesn't mean they will be the right individual as you move into these next roles. Sometimes you need another level of experience that's coming into these roles. So those are some of the challenges for sure. And then I think the biggest one that I learned is sometimes others see the value you bring before you see it in yourself. And loyalty, and it's a big thing for us, right? Like, our culture is loyal. And sometimes to our detriment. And in my instance, it was absolutely to my detriment. And it took somebody to look at me and say, like, yeah, you're being successful, but for them, not for you, right? You're not getting the raise, you're not getting the title, you're not moving up. They kind of keep giving you all of the amazing opportunities to learn and do these other things, which were fantastic. I took all of those opportunities, but it was never a forward movement. In fact, they continued to build me um, more of a horizontal space, which always ends up building, you always want more tools in your arsenal chest. But it was never the next rolls up, right? And so those were some of the things that I think were some of the big challenges. And a lot of it was building my own confidence in myself and knowing that actually I am amazing and know what I do. And I will say this to end this conversation is, it's okay to not know what you're going to do when you grow up, because I didn't know what I was going to actually do until I was probably 37, 38. I'm 45 right now. So for me to
Yes.
say that I didn't know exactly what I wanted to be when I grow up all the way into that moment is okay.
Yep.
And I think some people find like anxiety with not saying, this is my career and I need to go forward. And at the age of 20, and I'm going to do this, right? I'm fortunate that at the age of 20, I was in this space already, but to say that this was my career and this was what I was like super passionate about, it didn't take till coming to Five Star Bank to understand how I could drive career and passion, and they become one. So they are now like, it's me doing this work, and not because I don't love my job. I absolutely love my job, but it's my job and my my passion for community, my passion for being a mom, and they're now 100% meshed in the most perfect ways. And sometimes it takes time to get to there, and to be patient with yourself, and to have enough confidence to let go of what's comfortable and take the risks. Right. Those are all big things for us that we tend to hold on to just a little too long, more so than our male counterparts.
And that's wonderful that you stated that, because many times fear is what blocks us, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we create that. And so thank you for saying that, because I think there's so much learning from what you just stated, particularly when we doubt ourselves and we think that we can't do better, or when there's an opportunity for us to take, we take 2 steps back because we're afraid that we're going to fail, right? But you just basically said, no, sometimes not getting something, not getting a position, not necessarily being the right candidate for a position at that time doesn't mean that you're not going to be ready for it. I think it means that you're probably going to get something better, and another door will definitely open up to you. And I think you had multiple doors opening up to you.
I did.
Yeah.
I think it's really important to be yourselves or your own advocate sometimes, right? Because our parents sometimes teach us like, calladita te ves más bonita. Don't ask for help. You're fine.
Or there's a misinterpretation of who we are as women, right? One thing is that we're passionate, and they take it as they're too aggressive.
Yeah.
Or they're too vocal.
Yeah.
But we're just passionate.
Yeah.
And sometimes we just have to elevate our voices, right? And people will eventually catch up to us.
Yeah. And that's okay to ask for help.
Yes.
Oh, humility goes a long way.
Yes.
Speaking to that, right? Like, I think there's so many statistics out there that talk about how women will take a look at, the job qualifications of what's needed to get to the next role. And they love to check mark. We love to check mark. Like, oh, I did it. Oh, there's still like 4 of the 8 that I still really should do. Or there's still 8 out there. I should probably get to like 6 or 7 of them.
Yeah.
Well, our male counterparts will just be like, good job, then I'll learn it along the way. And we need to adopt a little bit more of that mentality, right? Because at the end of the day, if you feel like you are potentially ready for that role, then all you're going to get is a learning opportunity. You're going to learn what that person is looking for when they're interviewing you. And if you're not ready for it now, you could be later, right? So, and it also puts your name in the hat for what is. So, okay, so now we're ready for what comes next. And now your name is being spoken in rooms that you're not in because you did put your name in the hat. And while you might have been the one chosen at that moment in time, it's something that is now being circulated, right?
Yeah.
So again, right, if we are not speaking our truth or our own passion, then sometimes people won't speak it for us, right? So
yeah,
absolutely.
So Lydia, you share with us that when you moved to Five Stars Bank, you started to find your purpose. And how do you connect your passion for banking with your passion for community, to uplift communities, to support communities. And you spearheaded Five Stars Bank's first ever diversity, equity, and inclusion strategy. And you were aiming to have the bank mirror the diverse communities you serve. How did this look like in real life, and why that was so important for you?
Sure. So, I think I had alluded to that I had worked at Union Bank for 17 years, right? So I'm coming from a company that was $113 billion in total assets at the time, probably well over 10,000 employees, and made a courageous move to go into community banking and the idea community commercial banking. And so I was very much in a retail space, meaning 9 times out of 10, the end individual I was working with was more of a consumer than a small business, but my passion was always in small business and commercial, right? Nonprofits, all of those things, and watching kind of their trajectory continue to flourish. And so when I got the opportunity with Five Star, they were looking for a person that understood sales as well as operations. I had just finished executive banking school. And so now I have my bachelor's all done, and now I have my master's basically it's the equivalent of master's in banking, executive banking school. And I enter into Five Star, and the very first things I see is, so the total asset size of Five Star when I started was about $750 million. So very different. And I think I was employed like number 75 or something like that. So But what it was everything I wanted and embodied in the community, right? So it was very much a community bank and a communal feel, right? Like they were very much engaged. But it was a lot of the same sectors of individuals. We were a commercial real estate bank. And so a lot of the circles that the bank continued to um, work with and do so successfully was in those same circles. And so what I didn't see was an expansion of uh, additional potential possibilities. And so at that time, I said one of my bucket list items was to get my MBA, but I didn't want to get my MBA straight out of college because I wanted it to be purposeful and intentional, because I didn't want to spend time or money on something that I didn't know was going to be the next phase of my career. And so, we can unfold that onion in a different conversation. But so by the time I was 40, it was a bucket list that I finished my MBA. And so with the help of 5-Star, I was able to participate at the executive MBA program offered through Sacramento State. So I basically split the causeway. I have my undergrad at Davis, and I have my MBA completed through Sac State. And at that time, I was fortunate enough to get a sizable scholarship with 5-Star to be able to complete it. And the culmination of the program ends with a thesis or capstone of sorts. And I tried to figure out what that was going to be. And so I kept wrapping my head around 5-Star Bank is amazing at what we do, but we were falling short a little bit in terms of marrying the communities in which we served. Our board of directors was very homogenous in nature, right? So they same circles, same individuals, that type of a thing. And rightfully so. I understood why, because it was a very successful circle, but wasn't necessarily mirroring the communities in which we served. And our board of our C-suite at the time, I was not a part of it quite yet. And so, we had one woman that was on the executive team, one individual of color. And so there were some opportunities. And then when you kind of keep going down, the diversity was more in the lower rungs of the bank in terms of personnel. And so I basically went to my CEO and my COO, CFO at the time, and I said, I want to do a program around equity and inclusion, and really centered around incorporating the amazing good work that is already happening with 5-Star, but really adding some intentionality to wrap around our Community Reinvestment Act, right? So, and figuring out, like, how can we really capture some of our customers that could be doing some great work with our underserved, underprivileged, maybe our unhoused people with disabilities, our veterans, really thinking about this from a holistic and economic approach. And so there was two prongs to it. One was very internal in nature, and one was very external in nature. And so they allowed me the opportunity to write about it. And some of it was hard to digest, right? As executive leadership, to be able to see and take a kind of like a look in the mirror type of a thing. And I'm fortunate enough to work for amazing leadership that was so open to what comes next. And so with some of these efforts came the efforts of broadening who serves on our board, broadening the executive team, broadening our senior leadership team, and then beyond. And so I'm happy to report today we've got women and people of color, and all kinds of diversification happening at the board level, happening at the executive level. We've got 3 fantastic women that serve on the executive team. We've got people of color, and same thing in the senior leadership and in the rows in the levels below and below. Right, it's much more even. And so I'm super excited about that. There's always opportunities for us to be better. And then even in the communities we serve, very intentional with my counterpart who does a lot with our community, Maria Soria. And so she's our VP of community engagement and basically drives kind of what we do together. And so we always think about like the Community Investment Act. So affordable housing, we take a look at economic development, workforce engagement. We take a look at the arts and what we could be doing to be able to incorporate more in the communities in which we serve, right? And so just the intentionality versus kind of where we were previously. So that's basically what I built. And that's where cultural banking came out of. So being very intentional about who we approach, how we hire the individuals that can really maximize some of these dollars. And so we have a couple of BDOs that have been very successful, whether there's a woman focused or a cultural focus. We've been very successful.
Great.
Yeah, that's amazing. I hope to all of our listeners, they're paying close attention about the amazing work Lydia is doing, but also the bank that you work for, because now you've created an environment, an ecosystem where folks can relate and can see people that look like them,
Mhm.
but also can understand their needs, right?
Right.
So as you know, Mission Housing not only develops affordable housing, but we also do preservation. From your perspective, being at a C level now, and also as a civic leader, how can financial institutions such as Five Star Bank and local leaders and nonprofit can work together and begin to tackle the affordable housing crisis that we are experiencing? And how do we keep our neighbors vibrant and look,
Mhm.
like they're thriving too, right? But also help the community as well.
Right. So firm believer that our housing crisis cannot be solved through one lens. It will not be solved through only a public lens. It has to be solved in partnership with public and private, as well as civic leadership coming to light to shed light, but also offer innovative, creative ideas, right? So I think some of the things that I know I continue to see is we keep offering programming, but is this any different than what we did 10 years ago? And is there really dollars that are being allocated? Like, what's the creative way to do things? And so I think some of the things that sometimes that I see is we're not always bringing a wide enough scope of individuals to the table to think about things that are creative in nature and have worked, highlighting programs that have worked and then giving them the floor to say why they thought about doing it this way with the sometimes very few dollars, but yet super successful program, right?
Yes.
So sometimes we don't have to reinvent the wheel when we find programs like these that are being successful. We should embrace them, embody them, and help them to flourish. And then, like, what does everyone say? The biggest compliment of flattery is to see me and do what I do, right? So let's flatter these individuals that are creative in nature and figured out some of these successful ways and reciprocate it. And then give dollars to that. To me, that makes more sense, right? And so when you think about the private-public partnership, I talked about, our Community Reinvestment Act and all of our banking institutions that have an obligation to give back to the communities in which we serve. So, and I think trying to figure out what that looks like for each institution. They all have a little different vibe to what they want to focus or target some of their dollars towards. But I think this will be solved. I think it will be creative in nature. I think it will be in partnership. I think it will be when there's enough humility in the room to be able to understand that just because you're leading the conversation doesn't mean you have all of the answers. In fact, I would argue to say that many of the answers already thought of. We just need to have their voices uplifted.
Thank you for saying that, because you're absolutely right. This is too big of a challenge, right? But not one that we cannot beat, I think. And I'm proud to be in the affordable housing and also have partners such as yourself and Five Star Bank, because at the end of the day, we need more voices. We need more creativity. We need to also start thinking outside the box. And sometimes like what we say, like one size doesn't fit all. Like one solution does not fit everything, right?
No.
And so I appreciate you saying that, bringing in more folks to the table, being humble. Yes, I may not have the right answer. Even in affordable housing, I tell my team all the time, I don't have the answer for that.
Yeah.
We need to bring somebody in. We need to bring an expert. And I do have to highlight that the reason why we created this platform here is to give a space to bring experts into the table.
Yeah.
And so this is why we ask these questions, because
Yeah.
I think we need to dive in a little bit more. We need to come together a little bit more, right?
Yeah.
And start thinking, like you said, what's working? And if it's working, why are we changing it?
Right.
But if we need to change something, what else can we do?
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And let's bring some different mindset for discussion.
Yeah. Well, and this also comes back to cultural, right? So how one community embraces the unhoused or all the services that are wrapped around affordable housing. And it doesn't have to be unhoused. Sometimes it just is just making sure that the lights stay on, right, through the affordable component housing. And so how each sector of the community responds to help is also different, right? So, and that could even be like our veterans thinking about how they respond to help, and how, you know, our people of color respond to help, how women respond to help, how men respond to help, and understanding that it is different. So it can never be a one size fits all. And so while Mission Housing may have figured out how to really embody and embrace, let's call it the Latino uh, unhoused population or the Latino services, and it could work for a couple others, but it might not work for all. So maybe it's, you know, the, you know, veteran organization down the road that has really figured out how to work with, you know, getting the humility to ask for help. Because to your point, sometimes that's a big piece. And a lot of it, even for us culturally, pride is a very
It's a big deal.
But, you know, I'd rather you have a meal than have pride, right? Or your children have a meal than have pride. And I think more than anything, people will always bend at their children to do something, right? And they'd rather, they can eat it themselves, but they won't do it for their children. And so I think some of those things is really figuring out how do we help together. And I know one of the things that we have in Sacramento is in kind of the greater Sacramento is you have a lot of nonprofits that do a lot of the same things. So now we're like competing for some of the dollars instead of working in tandem and together. And so, you know, I really encourage many of our nonprofit partners to be trying to create some synergies or some coalitions where they could really maximize dollars versus, you know, 20,000 will only go this far. But if I can get you $500,000 because you've got A, B, C, D, and E all doing the same thing, right? That's cool. And I know one of the things that we love to do too is to bring our nonprofit partners and bring some education. Like, you know, if it's grant writing or if it's the things to take a look at when you're thinking about the financials of your organization and what to spot and make sure that, you know, you're poised to stay around and stick around. And so, or maybe it's workforce, because sometimes finding workforce in nonprofit is difficult. So how do we help you find the individuals that have that level of passion that want to be in the nonprofit? So, you know, let me create an ecosystem where I'm bringing together my individuals that are doing work in the workforce while I'm bringing my nonprofit that needs that base, right? So it's about thinking smarter instead of trying to create these continued silos that really don't help. And so I think when I think about like how 5-Star really mirrors the communities in which we serve, we don't do it in a silo. We do it in partnership and in tandem and in coalitions with, right, building ecosystems that create stronger communities. And so for us, being here in San Francisco is huge. And so for us being able to be a part of these nonprofits and help to dive in and drive your mission is just as important as to us it is to you.
Thank you. That's music to my ears for sure. And I'm sure it's to yours when you hear that partnership is a must.
Yes.
We are a true believer that collaboration, it's a must. Sometimes it's not easy to collaborate. You know, sometimes it's difficult to find the right partner. But when you find them, it's, you know, there's only one way to go, and it's up.
Yes.
Right? So I appreciate that. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
Lydia, do you lead in many spaces?
I do.
At home as a mom, at work, but also in the many boardrooms as a board member. And I know that you have shared that sometimes you're the one that looks different in that room and that you're okay with being the different one. How do those experiences have shaped the understanding of the community, the challenges that our communities face, and why it's so important to claim those seats in the boardrooms as well?
That's a great question. So one of the things I love to say is when I'm the only one that might look like me, or when there's not enough people of color in general, or women, or a combination of, I always say, instead of thinking of yourself as the only one, think of yourself as the star in the room and it's your time to shine. Right? So it's a different mindset. Yeah. I'm a very half glass full mindset. So instead of trying to figure out how do I fit in, you want to figure out how you stand out. You want to figure out how to create the partnerships that are going to create a greater opportunity for you to go forward. Not in a boastful way, not in a way to create harm, but in a way to create partnership, right? So how do I show that there's so much more that can be done in tandem together? And then what I'm looking to do is to create an opportunity for the next individual that that might look like me to be able to say, yep, like I know what Lydia was able to do. I'm sure this person can do the same thing, right? So opening up one's scope often takes working alongside somebody that is like that or has been a part of that. And so those are all big pieces of it. But I mean, there's many times where I'm in Sacramento. I am definitely for sure in the highest ranking banking individual, right, at an executive C-level space. And I could say that's probably, when you think about private industry, private sector, I'm probably also one of the few Latinas C-level. So when boards are looking for diversity of opinion, thought, different jobs to be fulfilled on a board, everybody needs fiscal responsibility. And so the first name usually comes out of their mind or their name or their mouths is mine, alongside a couple others. But so for me, the importance of showing what's possible when you're committed, driving impact is so critically important to me. It's not about notoriety. It's about driving impact. And in order for me to be able to do that, the wonderful thing is I am here. And I now can open up the doors. And so it's my responsibility to open up as many doors, windows, back doors, whatever I can get in, I'm going to do. Right. And so, and I kind of talked about this earlier with mentorship. Right. And so I feel like there's two advocates everyone should have in their back corner. There's mentors, which are more career focused trajectory, but there's also champions. And champions are usually these individuals that are consistently talking about you when you're not in the room, right? And so in order to have some of these individuals, and these can also be career driven, but sometimes they're personal driven. Like the work I'm doing in the community is a passion project, but it's so much tied to what I do at work too, right? So I'm driving economic development, but now I get to do it not just for the benefit of the bank and the communities that we serve, but now I get to do it as an individual driving impact in our community. And so I serve on so many different avenues within the community, right? I serve on food and hunger. I serve on taking a look at the economic development or vitality as a whole of specific sectors of our community. I serve on chambers of commerce. I serve on a lot of political boards because we need people that look like us in our seats. And so it is my responsibility, and I take this personally, to cultivate the young individuals that have this fire to say, it's time. Put your name in the ballot, and I will help you find the support you need, the backing, the dollars. I recognize what it takes to put people into office. And I always say, if I wasn't a banker, I'd probably be in political office somewhere. But right now, my focus is here. So I do a lot of that work. And then obviously doing a lot of work with just mentorship, and driving these conversations with, I always say representation matters, and it absolutely matters.
a lot.
And so, when you can see yourself or somebody like you doing and breaking these ceilings, and it wasn't just me, right? I always say it's me plus the people I stand on the shoulders of.
Yeah.
So I want somebody to stand on my shoulders and continue to do it, right? So that is critically important to me. And so I always tell my kids, I'm like, I know I'm out doing, and to your point, right? I've asked for the grace of my children to allow me to create
Yes.
the impact that I need to do.
Mm-hmm.
Now, could I have done this 10 years ago when they were younger? No, I'm a mom first. That is my first priority. It has always been my number one priority, and that has never wavered. So, I can count on one hand how many baseball games I missed ever, because that's how important it is for me to be there. Now, I might be on a board meeting while I'm watching a baseball and scoring the game and still connected to all of it at the same time. But that's the level of commitment it takes, right? To be able to have the voice in the community while showing your son or sons or daughters that when they look up in the stands, it matters that you are there. It matters. You will never get that time back. Do not be apologetic about asking for the time for your children. Just don't. It is critically important.
I do have a follow-up question on that.
Please.
For the both of you, because you both are on the executive teams, on your organizations, moms, juggling work and life. How do you do it all? And how do you make space also for yourself, not to only to serve your communities, not to only serve your family, but to yourself?
It's a great question. Do you want to start?
I joke around with my kids and I said, listen, we need to start cloning. We need to start cloning because, well, the way I find time is, for me, I'm an early riser. My kids always, are always telling me, Mom, you're up early. I have to. I feel like I do, just because I function better. I have energy in the morning. But that also includes for me the part of being really strong in time management. Like I'm the kind of person that looks at my calendar the night before and I plan for the night before. And I think that comes from being a mom, because I'm also a single mom of 3. Mm-hmm. And so for me, it used to be where I had to leave everything prepared the night before for my children. Like if the clothes, the whatever it was, right, for the night before. And I also think finding time, even if it's 5 or 10 minutes of just a me time, for me, it's an hour, and that happens on the weekend. I go out and I get myself a massage. I go out myself, and if I have to get my nails done or my hair done, that is my me time, and I loop it in my calendar one way or another. I think family is important, and I agree with Lydia on that. I don't hesitate. If my children need me, I've always said it through my entire career to all of my supervisors, my mentorship. You will get 100% of Marcia, but if my family needs me, I'm gone. So trying to understand what it means to be at work and I'm full, immersed in work. But when I'm off, like, where do I find and how do I balance that time to find time for myself, for my mother that is aging? And that's the other piece of me too, not just my children, but also my parents. They're a big deal for me. They're my foundation. They're the one who got me where I'm at. And now it's time for me to give back to them, right? And so I find time for my mom, even if it's a movie. My mom loves dancing. And I know, Lydia, I know you into music too. So we got to talk a little bit about that. But like finding ways to de-stress myself. And I do things together with my girls. Like I go to the gym with them. That's a we time there. We spend a little bit of time, or even if it's walking. We have a dog, we take the dog walking. So finding moments where we can recharge. I find those moments are just recharging myself. And when I feel like I am pushing too much, that's a time where I'm like, okay, I need to take some time off. But the mental health is important. Your physical health is important. Your health is important. If you don't have none of that, you can't function. It doesn't matter where we are in our career path. So time management for me is a big deal.
Yeah. So I look at the worlds a little differently, right? People are like, I love when I get the question, work-life balance. That's my favorite question. And when you think about a balance, right? Just think about a balance. Basically, when you're saying, I'm trying to do work-life balance, you're saying, I'm going to give more of something to someone and less of something to someone else. Well, I'm not built that way, right? I don't like to give myself less of anything, right? So I believe in work-life integration. So I will unapologetically work for 4 hours on a Sunday, but that means that on Tuesday, when my kid is at a baseball team or I'm getting my nails done at 3:00, I'm unapologetic about it. And I gave my time to my organization, or I'm out and doing all the things in the community. I'm giving my time to drive. And the one thing that if I can stress to our Latina women is we have got to go to the doctor. You have got to go to the doctor. Yeah. We go when there's not one thing wrong, but 10 things wrong. And then we go to the doctor. We need to go religiously every single year to do that physical, that checkup, because we cannot be who we need to be and show up how we need to show up without actually being healthy. So I stress that enough because I've had way too many people that I love near and dear wait till the last minute. And if they had just gone 1 or 2 years earlier, the magnitude of what was just said to them could have been a whole lot less. And now we're praying for time.
Yeah.
Right. So if you're 30 somethings, know what exams you need to go to and do not miss them. If you're 40 something, do the same thing. If you're 45, do the same thing. If you're 50, do the same thing. The other thing is take the taboo about talking about menopause, premenopause, take it out because it happens. We have hormones. It is a thing. Please engage in conversation. Figure out the pills that work for you. Figure out the creams that work for you. I mean, like, all the things. There's just, we tend to be like, oh my gosh, I'm going through this. I'm going to suffer in silence. No, because I promise you, 5 of us are all doing the same thing and we're all trying to figure it out. So if we all talk about it, it gets a lot easier, right? So in fact, one of my 2026 resolves is I'm going to be doing a podcast to talk about the taboos of executive women life.
Oh, I love that.
I love that.
So like, what are the taboos? Well, we talk about our personal life. Well, I'm a single mom. There's things that go along with that, right? You talk about being a mom, right? You talk about the challenges of being a woman in an executive life. You talk about the health of me. You talk about the pieces of what it takes for me to show up every single day, giving myself the hour. I absolutely, without a shot, I work out every single day. And it is my de-stressor. It is how I come down from the world. I actually do a nighttime routine. I go to the gym at 9:00 at night, right? Like, and it's, no one's there. I don't have to engage with anybody. I get it done.
And you get all the access to the machines.
I get access to everything. I do the whole sauna thing, and it is my way to just calm down. But it all came with a scare, right? So like in 2024, I work for a company that has enough amazing foresight to put the executive team through a full workup. Every test you could think of, we do it every 2 years. And I went to that in 2024, the beginning, and the doctor basically yelled at me, and was just like, well, do you want to be around for the next 5 years or not? Because my blood pressure was through the roof. Like, I was overweight, doing all the things. And so this past year, I started in January and down 45 pounds. But basically, I had to take back putting myself first. And we always put ourselves last. Yeah. And so now I put myself first every single time. Because if I can't show up for me, then I can't show up for anyone else. And I think that's the mindset is, and if you ask every other executive woman out there, they will tell you the same thing. If we can't put ourselves first, then you cannot get to the top. There's just no way because of the stressors that come. They keep compounding as you go through each phase of what that career looks like, right? It doesn't go away. People tend to, you get a bigger team, you get less stress. No, it just means the things that you're saying yes to or no to are much more impactful, right? That's all it means. So I do work out every single day. To stimulate the mind or to relax, I try to make sure that I'm not, and this is a work in progress. So I'm not great at it, but to remove the screen from my face at least an hour and a half before I shut down. So while I'm at the gym, usually I will at least listen to something, right? Music or podcast is my thing. That's where I just kind of unwind. But I also love turning the pages of a book. So I do read 10 pages of something every single day, 10 pages at minimum, something. Every day. I'm consistently learning about my industry and my community. So I'm staying on top of what all that looks like. And it sounds like, how do you do all that plus, right? Well, you do have to have time management and you do have to carve out these times for yourself and you do have to be unapologetic about these things. And so, sometimes in the middle of the day, because that's when I can go to work out, that's when I'm working out. And it is what it is, right? But the thing is, it's like, I know that my community, my children, and my work will appreciate it because at the end of the day, I am showing up in a greater capacity and space because I've done these things to help myself maintain my work-life balance. I 100% get a massage every month. It's a thing. I 100% will be on a board meeting while I'm getting my nails done. You just learn how to create that integration. And so, and I have opened up the door of my availability to myself little by little. So if you would have asked me to do these things when my kids were younger, I would have told you no. Today, I have a soon-to-be 19-year-old this year and a soon-to-be 20-year-old this year. So they are off living their own best life. And so the version of mom that they need is more of consultative, right? Versus like, I need to watch what you're doing every single day. Now, with my youngest who's going through college and figuring out what that looks like as he's a junior, there's moments that ebbs and flows where I need to be in more, but it's much more hands off than it was previously, right? So the door in terms of what you're able to do and the capacity that you're able to give starts to widen. And that's okay, right? You need to be able to say no when you can say no and yes when you can say yes. I'm still working at being better about not saying yes to as many things, especially when they're like passion projects, and everybody knows what my passions are. So they always find the right things to say. And I'm like, oh, okay, yes. Right? So, but those are the things for me, like, how do I balance it? I call my son every Sunday. We text every single day. That's in college. He's living his best life at CSU San Marcos, and proud to say he got a 4.0 or close to a 4.0 his first semester in college. So I'm like, but I'm a Latina mom and I threatened everything under the sun. If you don't do this and and you best believe community college, you will be coming home the spring semester. It is not needs to be, right? And I didn't do anything unrealistic, but I felt like, 3.0 is, you should be able to achieve a 3.0. You worked hard in high school. This should be a basic expectation. So for him to just knock it out of the park and show that, he doesn't have to report to mom anymore, right? Like he can go and do all the things and be all, and it's funny because I feel like I get more I love yous and more memes and more like thinking about me now that he's not in my face every single day. And I'm like, and I get the, you were right, mom. And I'm like, oh my God. I'm like,
that's a win.
I highlight
that's a win.
I like put them on my oh my God, this is the best things. But my biggest thing that I always tell my kids is, and I've taught this them forever, is every choice has a consequence. Good, bad, ugly, or indifferent. Every choice has a consequence. So before you make that choice, figure out what is going to happen. Right?
Yeah.
That's hard for your two boys, Lydia, because as far as I know, or that we know, you have done tremendous amount of work and you've been recognized in different platforms. I have here in my notes that you received the recognition for Women Who Mean Business, right? And 50th most powerful Latina, and you are celebrated for that. So can you imagine your son's, growing right next to you, seeing mom, being in different platforms and being recognized? How do you keep your feet on the ground, right? And how do you set that example for the both of them? But most importantly, you talked a little bit just recently about mentorship. And I know when you and I had the first conversation, you brought that up, and that was like music to my ears. Can you tell us a little bit about that? How do you keep humble? How do you guide your kids, your two boys, but also what message do you give to those, women that are in the same shoes, your same shoes? You just described how hectic life can be.
Yeah.
But also the message that you're sending out, which is, and by the way, I just want to refocus on that because you said you have to put yourself first. Go do your medical check-ins. Sometimes we don't. And I think that's the other downfall for our Latinas is that we take a lot on. We forget about ourselves because we're caring for others. So I know I've said a lot, but I think for me is, how do you keep humble? How do you keep your feet on the ground? How do you set that tone to, or that example to your two boys that are in a very unique place in their life right now?
Yeah.
But also the time that you're finding to mentor others in our community.
Yeah. It's a great question. And I'll have to start with a funny story. So one of my youngest son had to do like a 8th grade project, and it was to Google one of your parents, right? So he Googled me, and I had just gone on that, like starting to get more notoriety, starting to get more awards and articles written or podcasts or stuff. And so he came home and he's just like, do you know how many things are out there about you, Mom? And I was like, no. And he's like, there's a lot. Google your name. And so he made me do it with him. And I was like, oh yeah, there's a lot. And he's just like, no, Mom. He's like, other parents had like one thing because they had like a Facebook profile and they're trying to teach them like the ins and outs of social media. And he's like, Mom, I kept scrolling and your name kept going. And I was like, I know, kiddo. I'm like, it's just because we do a lot of stuff. And he's just like, that's a lot. And I'm like, I know. I said, but a lot of this is just driven off of like my natural passions, right? My intentions to want to give back. And I said, so for me, I will never put the crown of what I have achieved or what I am doing or what I'm trying to achieve on anyone else, including my children, right? They are their own individuals. They will find and forge their own paths. I'm here to help drive what that might look like, offer some opinions, whether they like them or not. That's my right as a mother. And at the end of the day, they're going to make their choice. And I always say choice has consequence. So just be prepared for whatever comes next, right? That's all I say. And again, sometimes it's fantastic and sometimes it's like, could have we done something more, right? And I'm like, and this is something that I live by too, right? Like, could I have done something a little bit more to be even better? Or am I doing too much, right? I'm stretching myself too much. And I'm like, okay, got time to come back, right? And so I think it's a way to create humility in myself, to level set and to bring myself back down to kind of reality. So sometimes, and I was having this conversation with another individual about sometimes we put ourselves in this superhuman space, right? We have to be superhuman to all things. And therefore, we don't give ourselves grace to create a mistake or a failure or whatever, right? Because, oh my God, at my level, I cannot, right? I have to be perfect. That couldn't be further from the truth, right? But how do we as individuals create that persona of we're not superhuman? Well, you create some humility in your space, right? Like, and you have to understand who your resources are and never being afraid to fail, right? If it's an opportunity that you could do something better, learn from it. Don't do it again, but learn from it. And I know that I'm going to continue to find opportunities because I'm still growing in my career, right? Like I'm hoping to retire by 60, 62. That's the idea, but that's still 17 years of work life in front of me. So that's a lot of impact that I still have yet to do and a lot of learning and people that I can ground myself with or challenge myself with. So I think those are some of the things that I continue to kind of think about. But at the same time, I never want to be the smartest person in the room. I always want to be around people that are giving me the opportunity to learn. And sometimes I think we as individuals that are in the C-suite sometimes forget that the smartest people in the room are not always the people above us. Many times they come from the individuals that are coming out of college because the way you look at the world is totally different than how I look at it, right? Your creativity, your innovative, your passion, your curiosity. Give it to me, right? Like I want to take it. I want to just ingest it like a sponge, but I don't want to take it from you. I want to do this with you because now I'm going to give you my experience of how do I help you navigate these things because this is not my win. It's your win with me helping you to navigate it, right? And I think sometimes being able to pass the baton and say, yeah, I might have gotten this through the finish line because it was sponsored by me. And sometimes you do need the sponsorship of somebody with experience or notoriety to get you to that next level. But that person better not take your spotlight and know who you're working with when you're partnering with somebody. Because for me, I want to give it all to the person that thought about it. If we worked at it together, then yeah, it's a we thing, right? But if it's not a me thing, I'm happy to be like, you did it. And all I did was use my name to help you shepherd some of the things, right? And so I think those are some of the things that I see as opportunities for people in our space. And I just try to mirror what I do every single day. And I do have a lot of younger people, a lot of people that are in their late 20s, early 30s. How did you do it? What did you do? And I'm like, oh my gosh, I did not have no script or anything, especially back then. But I did have some individuals that I could have coffee with and give my thought or opinion to. But at the end of the day, I always say that if I'm going to spend time with you and I'm going to have coffee with you and I give you some ideas, if you don't take it and come back to me in the next quarter, then you weren't really serious about it, and I'm not going to spend enough time with you.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you did come back to me and you're like, this was amazing, let's continue this, or you like purposely at the end of that meeting say, I want to continue this conversation, and you're all in it, then I will continue the conversation with you. So I will give or I will take away as much as you need, but I'm also going to protect my time too. So I'm not going to invest in somebody that's
right.
not all the way ready. And it's not because they're not investable at that moment in time. It's just they have some questions that they have to really think about before I can truly offer what comes next.
Yeah.
And I will give them those questions to think about, and I'll say, or I might even say, hey, go read this book. It's what helped me, right? Like, and what you take away from it and glean from it is going to be different than what I did. So, and we can go back to it after that. So,
and I think that's part of your time management too, right? Which is key. Where you invest your time, and if personally, like you said, it's ready, you're gung ho. I'm going with you. I'm gonna support you, but also appreciate the guidance because that's what you're providing at the end if they're not ready, right?
Yes.
So that's beautiful. I love these conversations. They really they motivate me.
Yes.
Yeah.
Me too.
For sure. For sure. Lydia, I know that you have shared that we all have our own version of power to give, and it grows with each opportunity. And I think that's so powerful. Are there national narratives about immigrants that you find completely disconnected from the reality that you see every day? And what are the hopes for the communities you serve on your position?
That's a great question. I am actually working with a couple of partners in the greater Sacramento area to bring to light some real testimonials on the impact of what is going on with ICE right now and how it is just, it's a different moment in time, targeting a different group in time. And we just have not yet learned quite yet how to be the America that I know and love. And there's moments of it that I know absolutely exist, especially in like small pods or small communities. But I think we could be better for ourselves. And so for me, partnering with individuals that want to bring to light these testimonials, these conversations, I'm all about it. But it does take courageous families that have experienced it directly firsthand to have these conversations. And I don't take that lightly at all. So I know the ask that I'm asking is quite significant. But at the same time, there's enough community partners like myself in the community that are wanting to do the good, bring out the good. And there is so much good, right? Like I talk about, like I'm a half glass full type of a person. So I can't allow the negativity to bring me down. I have to find the pieces that I can hold on to, the stories that need to be told that are basically in direct opposition to what is being shared. And so that's what I focus on, is figuring out how do we continue to bring to light, bring to fruition all of the good that is happening. Because while we tend to focus on the negative that is just in our face every single day, you turn on the TV, like I stopped watching the news a long time ago because it's just, it's overwhelming. I mean, you get it even if you don't turn on the TV, you get it on your phone, right? It's like you just get it in every which way. So I really tried to put my time with where's the good, where's the positive, and try to minimize the reaction to the negative because I feel like it's just adding fuel to that fire.
Yes.
So bring out the sunshine.
I think that is the other most important component right now. How do we show up, right, to uplift those that are in need? Our community is suffering, and I get a little choked up when I talk about this, and I'm sure you guys feel probably similar because we see it, we hear it, we're experiencing it. But how do we show up? What can we do to make a change? How can we show up to support others? And you said something very important. How do we keep thinking positive in such a dark time, right? I think a lot of families are looking for that. And I think if we're able to provide that, then we should do it.
Yeah. So
we should show up.
Provide the resources, put them on the websites. We've worked with, so I sit on the Hispanic Chamber Board, right, of Sacramento. And so working in tandem with the consulate in Sacramento and saying, what can we do? Can you help make sure that you are sharing the resources and making sure that we know how to communicate the resources. Our partners in law enforcement, they are seeing some of the negative come out of basically the coupling of law enforcement as a whole under one negative umbrella, when that's not necessarily the case. And unfortunately, it's affecting our communities in a negative way, and things are happening criminally that people would normally reach out and are afraid to, because of potential opportunity to lead down a different road. And so, partnering with our amazing law enforcement partners to say, this is not what we do. We are wanting to make sure that we maintain healthy, safe communities. And so if we can continue to broadcast that message and share it as loudly as we possibly can, so that our women and children are always safe, regardless of immigration status, we just need to get back to humanity.
Absolutely.
Humanity. And again,
Absolutely.
bring out the sunshine. And so I'm all about, how can I bring it out, right? It's the yellow in me, bring it out, say it loud, and think about it. And, but also give grace and show empathy for when we need to show the empathy, right? You can't just forget about what's happening. You do need to pause, give grace, respect the time, allow for the empathy to happen. But I don't want to swim in it.
Yeah.
I want to give the grace and find the sunshine.
Yeah. Keep showing up for your communities, but at the same time finding those moments when you need to step out for your mental health. If that means deleting social media for a couple of days, not reading the news for a couple of days.
Yeah.
But finding other ways
Yeah.
to support.
Yes.
And show up.
And stay rooted within your communities, right? Because I think our communities are speaking, right? And they're also reaching out to us.
They are.
Right?
Yeah.
And so I think this is a beautiful way to close out our podcast for today. But before I do that, is there anything else you'd like to share today, Lydia?
I think I will leave with this is, I think, people ask my why, right? Why do you do all of these things? And I think at the end of the day, my why is to tell you that I didn't wake up being the person that is in front of you today, right? It took time, it took effort, it took grace, and it took persistence. So just because when you look in the mirror, you don't see the person you want to be, but you know who you can strive to be and who you are looking to get to, you just need to keep going. And that means you're going to go through a trajectory that looks like a windy road, and that's okay. And the last thing I'll say is, every person needs a board of directors, right? So, and that board of directors changes, and I'm talking like 7 people that can humble you, give you praise, or question some of the things that you are trying to accomplish. Like, these are the people that you say, in 2026, I want to right? And so they have that narrative in their head, and these individuals are the ones that help you to achieve what it is that you're trying to achieve. It's a collective goal, right? And I want to know theirs. And so that board of directors is everything. And so there's so many people that you can be truly honest about who you are and what you want to be and how you strive to get there. And so sometimes, I won't say sometimes, it's lonely at the top. Yes. So having these individuals and creating a space of vulnerability is everything. So figure out who those individuals are and make sure you are communicating your goals and asking about theirs so that you can hold yourself mutually accountable.
Thank you for that. But before we go, Lydia, what are you listening to nowadays in music?
Oh, my goodness.
We'll close that out with your...
So, I mean, the Super Bowl is coming up, so I'm all about Bad Bunny right now. So, in the music, I'm like listening. I want to be singing his praises, singing all the songs. I'm all in it right now. So, he has been on my Spotify like crazy as I work out and do all the things at the gym. And so I'm definitely listening to that in this moment. So it's been a fun time.
You, Marcia?
Well, I'm actually on the same boat. I'm looking forward to the halftime.
I know.
Let's see what he's going to bring to the table. I'm loving his what do you call it? His whatever kind of anticipation. What are the commercials that he's doing?
Yes,
What do you call those?
Yeah.
You know what I'm
The
saying.
promos?
Those promos.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm loving that.
Yes.
He's sending very beautiful messages, you know. I love him, but I also love a lot of the how do I say Mexican cumbias I'm
Yes.
into right now.
Oh,
Yes.
wow.
A lot of Mexican cumbias.
Yes.
Los Angeles Azules, I think they're called.
Yeah.
I bring some of those when I'm trying to, when you know, those days where you don't want to work out. Those
Yes.
days where you're just like, oh, okay, I'm
I
here, but
have
I don't want to.
Yeah.
You put that music, right? And that keeps you going. That
Yeah.
keeps you going.
That's Selena for me. Like I just put her on and I'm like,
Yes.
oh, yes, I can listen to you all day long. And in fact, one of my best friends went down to the museum down in LA. And so she said, it's amazing. You got to go. And I'm like, okay, I want to go check it out.
Any specific song from her that you like?
I like them all.
Yeah.
They're all in my head and I can sing them all day long, but you know.
There's a person that was very humble in her time, right? I mean,
oh my God. And can you imagine like the trajectory of where she would be today? It's always, you know, like all the things of, you know, in like Jenny DeVetta, like I will, you know, when I'm feeling it all in my feels,
that's it.
I will be
put it on
her, right? Like, you know, I mean, just like Chinte, I'm in my feels. I want to listen to that music. That's my daddy's music. And, you know, God rest his soul. He passed away a long time ago, but, you know, and especially, you know, I live in a very generational household, right? So my mom lives with me, and you kind of going back to that question, how do you do it? Like I mean, sometimes our culture has always known how to do it right. You embed everyone into how the family becomes successful. And that means your parents to yourself, to your children, to your brothers and sisters. And your community at large. Like no one can do it alone. You have to reach out for help. So I'm lucky that I do have my mother living with me. And sometimes not so lucky because, you know, we're like this sometimes. But you know, at the end of the day, you know, my children have had that moment. My house is grandma's house. So it's not my house. Right.
Yeah.
So
she's the boss.
It's always, it's full of love and children and brothers and sisters. And so it's just, you know, I don't know that I know how to live in a quiet house. One day. No, I'm just kidding.
I don't know.
I don't know. It feels weird.
I think we'll suffer.
I know.
The day we get to that.
But yeah, so I think those are some of the things that, you know, I kind of keep in my grassroots efforts is, you know, I'll never stop showing up as myself, right? For me, bankers tend to show up in black and navy blues. And so I love color. I show up in the burgundies. I show up in the blues. I show up in the yellows. I'm the person that's like, oh, there's the color girly. And like, yep, all the color. That
makes us happy.
And that's how I bring my culture.
Went through.
Yeah. I bring out my culture through the color because we have such vibrant colors in our culture. And so that's how I show up as me, right? Every single day.
Wearing the hoops.
All of it. Everything,
yes.
right? And I think that's the thing is it's like, you know, don't be afraid to be yourself. But, you know, in moments and times, sometimes you do have to assimilate to get ahead, right? And not to lose yourself in assimilation, but you do need to figure out how the world has worked. And I call it the politicking, right? You have to learn how to politics. Because we have in order to get where we are today. And I'm happy to navigate anyone through those spaces because that sometimes is the hard part too. Those are some of the challenges we choose not to talk about because it is complicated. But I think the more we can continue to show up as our true selves, the easier it becomes. There's really not a lot of politicking other than relationship building that happens.
That's right. Well, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you for saying that, Lydia. As we close this episode, I just want to I'm extremely grateful for your time today. Thank you for sharing your wisdom.
Yes, thank you.
I think many of us, as Latinas too, you know, leading in one way or another, which is the reason why I wanted Gisela to come out and join us as our communications manager. It's beautiful to surround ourselves with this kind of energy, but also share the wisdom, our learning experiences. So thank you so much for spending, I don't even know how much time we spent because it sounded like we were just having cafecito and pan dulce. It's too bad. People can't see the pan dulce, but it's on the other side.
Yeah.
So thank you, Lydia, for your time today.
Well, I appreciate the honor of being here with you and being asked. It means the absolute world. And we are such strong supporters and advocates of everything that that Mission Housing is doing. So I can't
Thank
wait
you.
to see what continues with what comes
Absolutely.
next. And so I look forward to building this with you guys and
Thank you.
seeing how we can continue to do great things in the community.
Thank you. Thank you for your support.
Yeah, share this powerful conversation with your Latina friends, with your family members, with your community members. It was very inspiring. So thank you both for having me too.
Of course. Thank you.
Thank you.